Hello students, welcome to KANISHKA IAS Initiative on Question to Concept Approach, where in this video we are going to discuss the underlying concept behind the question. Coming to the question, under Indian Constitution, concentration of wealth violates right to equality, DPSP, right to freedom and the concept of welfare state. Here let us understand the right answer lies in right understanding of the question. Okay, so let us understand every individual option in a detailed manner so that we can rule out the wrong answer. First of all, what is right to equality? Right to equality falls under the fundamental rights. Especially Article 14 to 18 deals with the right to equality under the Constitution of India. This right to equality, broadly, it is a negative right where it imposes the liability on the state not to unnecessarily create inequality among the people. Okay, it means the state can create reasonable classification but not any unreasonable classification. Primarily, the state treats everybody equal. For example, Article 14, which mentions equality before law, but does not explicitly prohibit the wealth distribution. It is all about the political equality. It does not talk about economic equality. Political equality means the state shall be treating every citizen in front of the law. Law cannot be discriminating any person. And moreover, Article 14 to Article 18 does not deal with any kind of economic distributive policies, or no policy under Article 14 to 18 will dictate the state to distribute the wealth in the society. So hence we can directly rule out the possibility of right to equality as an answer. Moreover, while economic disparities may create inequalities, but Article 14 does not mandate redistribution of wealth. So this one we need to understand. Coming to the next option, right to freedom. Right to freedom does not have any connection with respect to distribution of wealth. Rather, it will try to provide the economic freedom rather than restricting the economic freedom of individual. It will facilitate the economic freedom. It does not talk about anything related to distributive justice. Even though it speaks the distributive justice very vague manner, not in a direct connection. For instance, Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A to G deal with the different types of freedoms, in fact liberties. For example, 19 Clause 1 Subclause A is about free speech and expression. Clause B, it is about freedom of individual to peacefully assemble in the public places without arms. 19 Clause 1 Subclause C, it is about freedom of unions, associations and cooperatives. Clause D, freedom of movement throughout the territory of the country. Clause E, freedom of settlement any part of the country. Clause G, it is about freedom of trade, business, profession or occupation. So that's how the right to freedom is all about providing economic freedom but not regulating the wealth concentration. Moreover, the right to freedom is a right which is available against the state. State has no power to regulate the freedom of individual in the unreasonable manner. Only the manner in which it is provided in the form of the reasonable restrictions presented in the Article 19 Clause 2 to Clause 6. Otherwise, the state has no connection with the economic distribution. Especially if you try to look at Article 19 Clause 6, where the freedom of profession can be regulated in the context of the public interest and also in the context of the monopoly of the state. Except those matters, the freedom of the individual cannot be regulated. So there is no explicit provision the economic aspects must be regulated or distribution must be affected. So that is not there in the Article 19. Hence, the right to freedom is also not explaining the right connection with the question. Coming to the next third aspect in the question, welfare state. What is welfare state? In fact, the concept of welfare state is not defined in the Constitution. But the concept of welfare state can be gleaned from various aspects of the Constitution, right from preamble, directive principles of state policy and even from the fundamental rights. For example, in the Western countries, the fundamental rights are broadly negative in nature, where they will prohibit the state from intervention. In India, the fundamental rights not only negative but also positive, where we are able to see certain rights in the form of Article 17, 29, 30, 15 Clause 2. These are facilitating the state to regulate certain social aspects, okay, and even certain rights of the people in a manner that the entire society must be benefited. So that's how we are able to see the welfareism or welfare state as a broader principle reflected in multiple provisions of the Constitution. Even the preamble also, the welfareism is mentioned in the form of justice. The welfareism is also mentioned in the form of socialist. So that's how we can say. Moreover, Constitution derives its welfare state objectives through DPSP. Yes, DPSP is one of the important provisions which can make the state to be welfaristic in orientation. But we cannot clearly say welfareism is only derived from DPSP. Yes, DPSP act as important tools in the hands of the state. Why? Because the fundamental rights are negative in nature in the broader sense, where they will prohibit the state intervention into the individual's life. Whereas the DPSP gives the do's on part of the state, what the state is supposed to do. So those are mentioned in the form of directive principles of state policy. So DPSP serve as an important tool in the hands of the state, but not the only tool. Then what are DPSPs? The directive principles of state policy provide the broader framework of the governance in three aspects: social, economic and political. Okay. So in other words, Article 38 mentions as a broader principle where the state has to create social order and which will be facilitating social, economic and political justice. So that's how by establishing such kind of social order, you will promote the justice. That is why we can say they are directives for the broader framework of the governance in the social spheres, political spheres and economic sphere. For example, in the political sphere, we are able to see Article 50 of the Constitution, Article 40 of the Constitution. Article 50 is about separation of state, separation of judiciary from executive. Article 40 is about promotion and establishment of Panchayat Raj institutions. Similarly, in the social sphere, we are able to see Article 44, which is about uniform civil code to promote gender justice. And similarly, we can also see other articles such as Article 39, Class A, adequate livelihood for men and women. Class D, equal wages for equal work for both men and women. Okay. And not only that, we are able to see other articles such as Article 46, promotion of the interest of the weaker sections. Okay. Similarly, economic dimensions, if we try to see Article 39, Class B, it is about placing the natural and material resources in the society to serve the common good of the people in the society. And 39, Class C, deconcentration of wealth in the society. State shall take measures so that the wealth is not concentrated in the hands of few people in the society. So this is how the directive principles of state policy will try to address the broader aspects of social, economic and political justice. And especially if you try to look at the question, the economic inequalities are to be reduced primarily through the directive principles of state policy and especially through the articles like Article 39, Class B and Class C. Why? Because it is not just our interpretation, it is the interpretation of the judiciary in various cases. The judiciary in the cases such as cases in the Bharti and Minerva Mills case, it has emphasized, yes, Article 39, Class B and Class C will be helpful to reduce the inequalities in the society in order to facilitate the implementation of the land reforms, in order to create the social order in a proper manner where economic inequalities can be addressed properly by the state. Okay. But at the same time, the Supreme Court also said in the Minerva Mills case, the DPSP cannot be implemented at the cost of fundamental rights, where DPSP and fundamental rights shall be balanced in the Constitution. And moreover, in the case on the Bharti case also Supreme Court said Parliament has the limited power to amend the Constitution, and in order to implement the directive principles of state policy, the fundamental rights cannot be violated. And no other feature of the Constitution shall be violated, which comes to be known as basic structure of the doctrine. No other feature of the Constitution shall be amended in such a way that it may compromise the basic structure of the Constitution. So that's how we are able to see different Supreme Court judgments also emphasized upon Article 39 Class B and Class C in order to reduce the income inequalities in the society. That's why, coming to the question, the answer appears to be related to every option here, but more specifically the answer is the directive principles of state policy, because right to equality is all about its political dimension, right to freedom is also in all its political dimensions, and of course economic dimension also. But both A and C also have the common feature where they are more of negative in nature rather than positive in nature. And the concept of welfare state is derived from every feature of the constitution, not exclusively directive principles of state policy, but the only option which is related to the concentration of wealth violates what is that? Directive principles of state policy, because it is a direction which is given by the constitution to the state to reduce the inequalities. Hence, if any wealth concentration is there, definitely that appears to be the failure of the state to address that particular dimension. Moreover, we also know the directive principles of state policy are non-justiciable in nature, where the courts cannot enforce these principles by means of the judicial orders. Thank you, friends. Thank you, everyone. Please subscribe to KANISHKA IAS.